The Weight of 100 Years, the Council Chamber, Zenith Station, year 127 post-contact. The chamber hung in the black like a crystal caught in starlight. 12 kilometers of engineered perfection, where 700 species had gathered for over 3,000 years to argue, trade, and occasionally prevent wars. Its transparent walls overlooked the neutron binary that powered the station. 2 dying stars locked in an eternal dance. Ambassador Orion Hale had watched those stars through 6 treaty negotiations, 12 trade disputes, and countless sessions where humanity's proposals died in committee. Today he wouldn't be watching them anymore. The Council recognizes the human delegation. Chancellor Vethris didn't look up from his data tablet. The Kael'thar were one of the founding 4. Insectoid beings whose civilization had mastered faster than light travel when Earth's ancestors were still figuring out fire. To Vethris, humanity's 127 years on the Council was the geopolitical equivalent of a long weekend. Orion stood, straightening the simple gray suit that marked human diplomats. No ceremonial robes, no bioluminescent status displays, no pheromone broadcasts, just cloth and composure. Chancellor, Council members, I come before you not to petition, negotiate, or plead. His voice carried through the translation matrix to 700 species, in 700 different ways. I come to inform you that as of midnight Galactic Standard Time, humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. The silence lasted exactly 2.3 seconds. Then the laughter started. Flashback. Earth camera 20 years earlier. They're never going to respect us, Dr. Sarah. Chen stood at the observation window of humanity's first extrasolar colony, looking out at the terraformed valleys of New Guangzhou. Behind her, the emergency meeting of the Colonial Development Committee was deteriorating into the same old arguments. We've turned 6 dead worlds into gardens, she continued. We've shared our medical technology freely. The Vakreen live 30% longer because of our cancer treatments. We've integrated their refugees, learned their languages, adapted to their customs. And what do we get? The infrastructure tax just went up again, Director Morrison said quietly. 17% this year. The Kael'thar say it's because our excessive expansion put strain on shared jump gate networks. The jump gates we repaired after the Zesh conflict, Chen shot back. The ones they let fall into disrepair because maintaining them wasn't prestigious enough. Someone pulled up the latest council proceedings on the holo display. There was Vethris again, wings rustling in what the translation software rendered as dismissive amusement. The humans are enthusiastic, like children playing with building blocks. Give them time. Perhaps in another 1,000 years they'll understand how galactic civilization actually functions. Chen had watched that clip 100 times, watched the other council members' reactions, the Wytherans' chromatic agreement display, the Barathian delegates' mandible clicking that served as laughter. No one had defended humanity, not one voice in 700 species. There's another option, she said softly. Everyone in the room knew what she meant. They'd all thought it. No one had dared say it aloud until now. We leave. The council chamber. Present-day Ambassador Hale. Chancellor Vethris finally looked up, compound eyes glittering with something between confusion and condescension. Surely you don't mean... I mean exactly what I said. Orion uploaded the formal withdrawal documents to the council network. 700 displays lit up simultaneously. All human vessels will be recalled from council operations within the month. All joint research projects will be terminated. All trade agreements will be honored to their contractual completion, then discontinued. All defense pacts are hereby nullified. The Wytheran ambassador, a being of living light contained in a crystalline matrix, pulsed with colors that translated as incredulity. Ambassador, no species has ever left the council. The very concept is absurd. Where will you go? How will you trade? Who will protect your colonies from the raider clans? We'll protect ourselves. As we have been. That got reactions, real ones. Several delegates actually checked their data, and they found it. Over the past century, 17 major pirate incursions into council space had been quietly stopped. Not by the council defense fleet. They'd been repositioning or awaiting committee approval each time. By human rapid response groups. The official reports listed them as resolved through diplomatic channels or naturally de-escalated. The Vakreen plague that would have killed billions? Stopped by a human medical team working through their sleep cycles for 8 months straight. Credit officially went to a joint council task force that had, in reality, contributed 3 advisors and a lot of press releases. The Torn Gate incident, where a malfunctioning jump gate threatened to create a cascading network collapse, fixed by human engineers who'd reverse-engineered Kelthar technology in 6 days, because the original builders said a repair would take at least a year, possibly 3. It was all there in the data, hidden in footnotes, buried in appendices, credited to committees and councils and joint operations. Humanity had been the galaxy's emergency response team, and no one had noticed because humans never demanded credit. They just solved the problem and moved on. "You've been patching our civilization together," the Barathian delegate said slowly, his usually jovial tone replaced by something like dawning horror. "For decades. For 127 years, Orion corrected. Every time quietly, efficiently, while you laughed." He began walking toward the exit. His small delegation, just 5 humans in gray suits, fell in behind him. "Ambassador." Vethrus's wings flared. "You cannot simply, this is unprecedented, the economic disruption alone. We'll teach you the value of things you took for granted." Orion stopped at the threshold, looked back one last time at the assembly of 700 species. "We came to you as partners. You treated us as servants. We offered friendship. You offered condescension. We built your infrastructure, healed your sick, fought your battles, and asked only for respect in return." His voice didn't rise. "It didn't need to. You couldn't even give us that." The door sealed behind them with a soft hiss that sounded, to 700 species, like the end of everything they'd known. Earth, the war room. 24 hours later, "It's done." Admiral Victoria Cross looked at the holographic display of human-controlled space. 43 colony worlds, 217 stations, 16,000 vessels from mining drones to dreadnoughts, and more importantly, 6,000 human-crewed ships currently operating in council space. Engineers on Kelthar Forge worlds, medical teams on Vakrine hospital stations, defense contractors protecting Withrin crystal gardens, logistics coordinators managing the flow of resources through 200 star systems, the galaxy's invisible scaffolding about to be removed. "Recall order is transmitted," she said. "Fleet commanders report full compliance. Everyone's coming home." Dr. Chen, now serving as Humanities Minister of Colonial Development, pulled up economic projections. The models were apocalyptic. The Feridan corridor will collapse within 3 months. Without our logistics AI, the Kelthar medical system will be overwhelmed. Within 6, our biotech handles 40% of their emergency cases. The Withrin crystal gardens need our environmental stabilizers or they'll start dying within. "I know." President Jackson's voice was quiet. He'd been the one to authorize this. The weight of it showed in every line of his face. "I know what this will cost them. Are we sure?" Chen asked, not challenging. Genuinely asking, "Are we sure this is who we want to be?" Jackson was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled up a file. Authorization code Obsidian Sky. Everyone in the room went still. 3 months ago, our deep space monitoring stations detected something. Far beyond the galactic rim, moving toward council space, the display showed something, not a fleet. Not exactly. More like a living darkness eating the light of stars as it passed. We sent the data to the council. Full analysis, threat assessment, recommended defense preparations. He pulled up the response, filed under low-priority research queries, assigned to a junior committee. Expected review time, 18 to 24 months. "They didn't even look at it," Admiral Cross said softly. "Oh, they looked," Jackson corrected. Chancellor Vethrus's personal response is in the file. He played the audio. "The humans see shadows in the dark and call them monsters. How expected. This is why younger species require guidance. They lack the perspective to distinguish genuine threats from paranoid fantasy." The room was absolutely silent. "That shadow will reach council space in approximately 7 months, Jackson said. "Our xenobiology teams call it the Devourer Swarm. Every civilization it's encountered has been consumed. 14 so far that we can confirm. Maybe more." "And we're not going to warn them again," someone said. "We did warn them. They laughed." Jackson closed the file. "Now they'll learn. And when they call for help, and they will, we'll decide then what kind of species we want to be." He stood, looking at each person in the room. But we will not be the ones who crawled back begging to be taken advantage of again. We will not be the galaxy's unpaid servants. Whatever comes next, we face it as a sovereign people who knows our worth. Even if that means watching them burn, Shen asked. Jackson's expression was carved from stone. Even then. The silence between stars, the Veridan Corridor, Trade Hub Sigma-7. 3 months after withdrawal, the first domino fell quietly. Station Master Kelnara of the Vrax Consortium had run Sigma-7 for 43 years. In that time, she'd seen trade disputes, shipping delays, even a brief pirate blockade. She'd never seen the cargo schedules simply stop making sense. Run it again. She clicked to her logistics coordinator. The holodisplay showed the same impossible data. 17 freighters overdue. 23 more showing estimated arrivals that violated basic physics. Routes that should take 6 days now projected at 19. Supply shipments delayed. Perishable goods expiring in transit. The entire carefully orchestrated dance of galactic commerce grinding into chaos. I don't understand. Her coordinator buzzed nervously. The routes haven't changed. The jump gates are functional, but none of the ships are where they're supposed to be. Kelnara pulled up the historical data, going back 5 years. There, subtle corrections in nearly every shipping manifest. Course optimizations, gate timing adjustments, traffic flow modifications that somehow kept 50,000 vessels moving through the corridor without collision or delay. Every single correction had a human digital signature. The logistics AI that had been managing the corridor wasn't Council technology. It was human. And 3 months ago, every human technician had left. They'd provided the source code, the documentation, everything needed to maintain the system. What they hadn't provided was the intuitive understanding of how it actually worked. The AI was still running, but without human oversight. It was like a musical instrument playing notes without understanding melody, technically functional, practically useless. How long until the shipping delays cause actual shortages? She asked quietly. Her coordinator checked the projections. Sigma-7 will run out of medical supplies in 11 days. Food stocks will last perhaps 3 weeks. After that, a station housing 2 million beings would have to be evacuated. Just like the other 6 stations in the corridor that had already begun emergency protocols, and there were 200 corridors in Council space. Kael'thar Prime, Grand Medical Complex. 4 months after withdrawal, Dr. Shexacris watched the patient count climb and felt something he'd never experienced in his 2 centuries of practice. Helplessness. The emergency ward was full. The overflow facilities were full. They'd started setting up triage tents in the ceremonial gardens, much to the Council's horror. Nothing worked. Not because they lacked medicine. Not because they lacked doctors. Because they lacked the diagnostic systems. The human biotech interface that had seamlessly integrated with Kael'thar physiology, reading their compound neurochemistry, their distributed organ systems, their unique cellular structures, had been operating in every major hospital for 70 years. The humans had left the hardware, left the software, left detailed manuals. What they couldn't leave was 70 years of calibration data, the accumulated learning of thousands of cases, the intuitive adjustments that human doctors had made, working alongside Kael'thar physicians, teaching the AI to understand the subtle differences between sick and dying in a species with 12 parallel cardiovascular systems. Without that knowledge, the scanners produced data. Just meaningless data. Patient 773 is crashing, a nurse called out. Shexacris ran to the bed, a young Kael'thar, barely into her second instar. Symptoms suggested neural cascade failure. Standard treatment would be, he stopped. Because standard treatment for neural cascade assumed you could monitor the cascade progression in real time. The human scanners did that. The Kael'thar scanners they'd switched to showed numbers, just numbers. By the time they meant something, the patient was already gone. Do we have any of the human medical team still on planet? The last one left 8 weeks ago. They offered to train replacements, but the Council Medical Authority had declined. Why would they need training from a species barely past their first century of space travel? The young Kael'thar's life signs flatulated into flatline. Shexacris felt his wings droop in defeat. She was the 47th patient they'd lost this week to conditions that would have been routine a year ago. Contact Earth, he said quietly. Doctor, the Council has forbidden. I don't care. Contact them, beg them, offer them anything. We're dying. Wytheran Crystal Garden World, Luminara. 4 months after withdrawal, the Ithorans didn't speak in words. They spoke in light, in color, in the subtle harmonics of crystal vibrating at specific frequencies. Their entire civilization was built on carefully maintained resonance fields that kept their living light consciousness bound to physical form. The resonance field at Luminara was failing, Ambassador Christel A, being of pure sentience held in a matrix of quantum-locked crystal. Watched the color drain from the garden, literally. The younger Ithorans were dimming, their light forms flickering like candles in wind. The environmental stabilizers were failing. Not broken. The human-designed systems were built to last centuries, but they required constant micro-adjustments to account for stellar radiation fluctuations, gravitational variations, even the presence of the Ithorans themselves. The humans had made those adjustments without being asked. Constantly monitoring, constantly optimizing, maintaining the delicate balance that kept Itheran civilization alive. Now the systems ran on automatic, following pre-programmed parameters that were already 3 months out of date. 3 months. That's all it had taken for the garden worlds to begin dying. How many have we lost? Christel pulsed to the garden keeper. 217 this month, mostly the young and the newly formed. They cannot maintain coherence when the fields fluctuate. 217 Wytheran children, their consciousness dissolving back into undifferentiated energy because the supporting technology had become just slightly less precise. The council is studying the situation. Christel's color shifted to bitter orange. They've assigned a committee. Expected recommendations in 6 to 8 months. We don't have 8 months. I know. Christel looked at the dimming garden, at the flickering lights of his people's children, and made a decision that would have been unthinkable 5 months ago. Prepare a delegation. We're going to Earth. The Council has forbidden direct contact with the Council. Christel pulsed in colors that translated to absolute finality. Is not watching their children die. Earth, Geneva. Human Council headquarters. President Jackson looked at the holographic display of requests, pleas and increasingly desperate messages from across Council space. Medical emergencies, infrastructure failures, trade collapse. Each one came with a price tag of lives, thousands, millions, projected to be billions if the cascade continued unchecked. We could help, Dr. Chen said quietly. Send medical teams to the Kalthar worlds. Dispatch engineers to restore the logistics networks. It would take maybe 10,000 personnel and establish the exact same pattern that got us here. Admiral Cross's voice was sharp. We rush in. We fix everything. We ask for nothing. They take it for granted. 10 years from now, we're right back where we started. People are dying, Victoria. People die every day. That's not our responsibility anymore, isn't it? Chen turned to face the Admiral. We built those systems. We integrated ourselves so deeply into their civilization that our absence is killing them. We knew this would happen. We calculated it. We're not innocent bystanders. We're the architects of this collapse. They're the architects, Jackson interjected quietly. Every time we warned them. Every time we offered to train their people to maintain the systems. Every time we suggested redundancy protocols. What did we hear? He pulled up the recordings. There were hundreds of them. The humans worry too much. So paranoid. Why would we need to understand human technology? That's what humans are for. Training programs, please. Our people are perfectly capable of managing whatever support functions are necessary. Why would we need to understand human technology? That's what humans are for. Training programs, please. Our people are perfectly capable of managing whatever support functions are necessary. You showed them the blueprints, Jackson said. You offered them the knowledge. They chose not to learn because they didn't think they'd ever need to. Because they assumed we'd always be there, grateful for the scraps of respect they never gave us. The room fell silent. Sir? An aide appeared at the door. We have a situation. A Wytheran diplomatic vessel just entered Earth space. They're requesting emergency asylum for 2,000 refugees. Crystal Garden's failing. They need our stabilization technology or they'll die within weeks. Everyone looked at Jackson. 2,000 living beings. Refugees from a civilization that had laughed at humanity for a century. Children who'd done nothing wrong except be born into a society that had taken humanity for granted. "What are your orders, Mr. President?" Jackson closed his eyes, felt the weight of 2,000 lives in one hand, humanity's dignity in the other. "Bring them down. Medical teams to meet them at Landing Site 7. Full stabilization protocols. Save every single one of them." Chen exhaled in relief. "But," Jackson continued, "they don't stay for free. The Wytherans want our help. They negotiate. Technology transfer. Training programs. Public acknowledgement of exactly why they need us. And most importantly," his voice hardened, "they advocate to the Council for the complete restructuring of humanity's status. Full voting rights. Equal representation. Public apology for a century of discrimination." "They'll never agree to that," Admiral Cross said. "Then 2,000 Wytherans die, and their civilization learns what happens when you burn your bridges." Jackson opened his eyes. "I'm not being cruel, Victoria. I'm being realistic. We save these people, but we don't go back to being the galaxy's unpaid help. Either they value us as equals, or they learn to survive without us." "And if the Council still refuses?" Jackson pulled up the obsidian sky file. The dark shape between the stars now significantly closer. 5 months until it reached Council space. Then they'll face the Devourer swarm without us. And may whatever gods they believe in have mercy on their souls. Zenith Station, Chancellor's private chambers, 5 months after withdrawal, Chancellor. Vethrus's wings trembled as he read the reports. 17 stations evacuated, 43 billion credits in economic losses, medical crises on 12 worlds, infrastructure failures cascading through 60 star systems, and now refugees, Council citizens fleeing to human space because only Earth had the technology to save them. "How did we miss it?" he asked the Council's chief analyst. "How did we not see how deeply they'd integrated?" "Because they did it quietly, Chancellor. They never demanded recognition, never made a show of it. They just solved problems. We thought of them as service providers. We didn't realize they were the foundation." Vethrus pulled up the economic analysis. The numbers were devastating. The Council's GDP had contracted by 8% in 5 months, projected to reach 23% by year's end, unemployment rising, trade networks fragmenting, medical systems overwhelmed. And worst of all, the raider clans were noticing. Without human rapid response teams, pirate activity had increased 400%. Entire colonies were being abandoned, their populations flooding into already strained Council worlds. "We need them back," Vethrus said flatly. "The humans are demanding—" "I know what they're demanding. Equal status, full Council rights, public acknowledgement. A complete reversal of a century of policy." His wings fluttered in agitation. "Do we have a choice?" The analyst was quiet for a moment. "Chancellor, there's something else. The humans sent us data 5 months ago about a potential threat from beyond the rim. We filed it as low priority, I remember. Paranoid speculation about shadows in the dark. What about it? Our deep space monitoring stations are now picking up the same readings, and they're significantly closer than the human projections suggested." Vethrus went very still. "Show me." The display lit up with gravitational anomalies, radiation signatures, and most disturbingly, the disappearance of 3 minor civilizations that had been broadcasting just 6 months ago. The Devourer swarm was real. It was coming, and the Council had 4 months to prepare for something that had destroyed 14 civilizations. "Contact Earth," Vethrus said quietly. Tell them the Council is prepared to discuss their terms." "All of them?" Vethrus looked at the advancing darkness on the display, looked at the crumbling civilization around him, looked at the inescapable truth. Humanity hadn't left because they were weak. They'd left because they were strong enough to walk away. All of them. And pray to the first light that they're willing to listen. "Earth, War Room, 5 months after withdrawal. They're calling." Jackson looked at the incoming transmission request from Zenith Station. Chancellor Vethrus himself. "How predictable." "Should we answer?" Admiral Cross asked. Jackson looked at his advisors. At Dr. Chen, who'd advocated for mercy. At Admiral Cross, who'd advocated for strength. At the military commanders, the civilian leaders, the scientists and engineers who'd built humanity into something the galaxy couldn't function without. "We answer," he said finally, "but not to save them. We answer to show them what equals actually look like." He opened the channel, Chancellor Vethris appeared, wings drooping in exhaustion. Mr. President, the Council wishes to discuss negotiations. Jackson interrupted. The Council wishes to discuss negotiations. Because you need us. Say it, Chancellor. Vethris's compound eyes reflected the weight of 700 species. We need you. And what are you willing to give us in return? What do you want? Jackson leaned forward. Everything we asked for. Everything you refused. And one thing more. He pulled up the Devourer swarm data. You have 4 months until that arrives. We have the only military in the galaxy that's been preparing to fight it. We have the technology, the strategies, the weapons you'll need to survive. You'll help us? On our terms. Not as your servants. Not as your grateful inferiors. As your equals. As your partners. As the people who hold your survival in our hands and are choosing to help.